John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States, serving from 1961 until his assassination in 1963. He was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, to a wealthy and politically influential family. Kennedy graduated from Harvard University in 1940 and joined the Navy the following year. During World War II, he commanded a patrol torpedo boat and was injured in an attack by a Japanese destroyer. After the war, Kennedy served in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate before being elected president in 1960. As president, Kennedy faced a number of foreign crises, including the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Despite these challenges, he managed to secure such achievements as the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and the Alliance for Progress. Kennedy was also a strong advocate for civil rights, and his administration played a key role in advancing the cause of racial equality in the United States. Kennedy's presidency was cut short by his assassination on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. His death was a shock to the nation and the world, and it remains one of the most tragic events in American history. Despite his brief time in office, Kennedy's legacy continues to inspire people around the world, and his vision of a more just and peaceful world remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. Here are some of his most famous quotes. "Those who dare to fail miserably can achieve greatly. Mankind must put an end to war before war puts an end to mankind. There can be no progress if people have no faith in tomorrow. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. If you face a man's job, find a woman. Change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. The only unchangeable certainty in life is that nothing is unchangeable or certain. One person can make a difference, and everyone should try. There is nothing more certain and unchanging than uncertainty and change. Never let your fears hold you back from pursuing your hopes. We want to be first, not first if, not first but first. The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. In a time of turbulence and change, it is more true than ever that knowledge is power." When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. Economic growth without social progress lets the great majority of the people remain in poverty, while a privileged few reap the benefits of rising abundance. Tolerance implies no lack of commitment to one's own beliefs. Rather, it condemns the oppression or persecution of others. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. It is insane that two men, sitting on opposite sides of the world, should be able to decide to bring an end to civilization. Sometimes party loyalty asks too much. Let us never negotiate out of fear. But let us never fear to negotiate. Communism has never come to power in a country that was not disrupted by war or corruption, or both. There will always be dissident voices heard in the land, expressing opposition without alternatives, finding fault but never favor, perceiving gloom on every side and seeking influence without responsibility. A tax cut means higher family income and higher business profits and a balanced federal budget. This country cannot afford to be materially rich and spiritually poor. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. Ask not that the journey be easy, ask instead that it be worth it. Things do not happen. Things are made to happen. A nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Effort and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. Only an educated and informed people will be a free people. The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Don't pray for an easy life, pray to be a stronger man. Too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. The rights of men come not from the generosity of the state but from the hand of God. I will splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds. If we are strong, our strength will speak for itself. If we are weak, words will be of no help. We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. A boy spends his time finding a girl to sleep with. A real man spends his time looking for the one worth waking up to. There are risks and costs to action. But they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. The state is the servant of the citizen, and not his master. Persons are judged to be great because of the positive qualities they possess, not because of the absence of faults. Our nation is founded on the principle that observance of the law is the eternal safeguard of liberty and defiance of the law is the surest road to tyranny. Don't ask why, ask instead, why not? The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender, or submission. Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. No responsibility of government is more fundamental than the responsibility of maintaining the highest standard of ethical behavior for those who conduct the public business. We are not here to curse the darkness, but to light the candle that can guide us through that darkness to a safe and sane future. Democracy may not be perfect, but at least I don't have to build a wall to keep my people in. The high office of the president has been used to foment a plot to destroy the Americans' freedom, and before I leave office, I must inform the citizens of this plight. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Our task is not to fix blame for the past, but to fix the course for the future. Let's talk to one another instead of about one another. All of us do not have equal talent, but all of us should have an equal opportunity to develop our talent. Hold fast to the best of the past and move fast to the best of the future. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed and no republic can survive. Justice delayed is democracy denied. It is not our wealth that built our roads, but it is our roads that built our wealth. No sane society chooses to commit national suicide. The great enemy of the truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive and unrealistic. The goal of education is the advancement of knowledge and the dissemination of truth. The unity of freedom has never relied on uniformity of opinion. The only reason to give a speech is to change the world. Politics is a jungle torn between doing the right thing and staying in office. We need men who can dream of things that never were. There are three things in life which are real: God, human folly, and laughter. Since the first two are beyond our comprehension, we must do what we can with the third. A great change is at hand, and our task, our obligation, is to make that revolution, that change, peaceful and constructive for all. Only in winter can you tell which trees are truly green. Only when the winds of adversity blow can you tell whether an individual or a country has steadfastness. So, let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. Those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. Freedom is not merely a word or an abstract theory, but the most effective instrument for advancing the welfare of men. To those whom much is given, much is expected. Truth is a tyrant, the only tyrant to whom we can give our allegiance. The service of truth is a matter of heroism. A medical revolution has extended the life of our elder citizens without providing the dignity and security those later years deserve. The problems with this world cannot possibly be solved by skeptics or cynics whose horizons are limited by the obvious realities. We need people who can dream of things that never were. We should not let our fears hold us back from pursuing our hopes. The best road to progress is freedom's road. The world was not meant to be a prison in which man awaits his execution. Certain other societies may respect the rule of force, we respect the rule of law. Sincerity is always subject to proof. The future promise of any nation can be directly measured by the present prospects of its youth. It is time for a new generation of leadership. Compromise does not mean cowardice. Not everyone has equal abilities, but everyone should have equal opportunity for education. Libraries should be open to all, except the censor. Peace is a daily, a weekly, a monthly process, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures. Everywhere immigrants have enriched and strengthened the fabric of American life. The Greeks understood that mind and body must develop in harmonious proportions to produce a creative intelligence. The world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty, and all forms of human life. Neither smiles nor frowns, neither good intentions nor harsh words, are a substitute for strength. We, the people, are the boss, and we will get the kind of political leadership, be it good or bad, that we demand and deserve. The basis of effective government is public confidence, and that confidence is endangered when ethical standards falter or appear to falter. Our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future. And we are all mortal. We stand for freedom. That is our conviction for ourselves, that is our only commitment to others. It is in the American tradition to stand up for one's rights, even if the new way to stand up for one's rights is to sit down. Time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life. We believe that if men have the talent to invent new machines that put men out of work, they have the talent to put those men back to work. Victory has 1,000 fathers, but defeat is an orphan. We can have faith in the future only if we have faith in ourselves. The only valid test of leadership is the ability to lead, and lead vigorously. Show me a man with a great golf game, and I'll show you a man who has been neglecting something. We have the power to make this the best generation of mankind in the history of the world, or to make it the last. War will exist until that distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today. Here on earth, God's work must surely be our own. Those who do nothing are inviting shame as well as violence. Those who act boldly are recognizing right as well as reality. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. I would rather be accused of breaking precedents than breaking promises. When my office would require me to either violate my conscience or violate the national interest, then I would resign the office, and I hope any conscientious public servant would do the same. Man is still the most extraordinary computer of all. A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers. History will never accept difficulties as an excuse. Great crises produce great men, and great deeds of courage. Anyone who can solve the problems of water will be worthy of 2 Nobel Prizes, one for peace and one for science. You know nothing for sure, except the fact that you know nothing for sure. Intelligence and skill can only function at the peak of their capacity when the body is healthy and strong. Each success brings with it the potential of failure, and each failure brings with it the potential of success. There is always inequality in life. Some men are killed in a war and some men are wounded and some men never leave the country. Life is unfair. Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. The war against hunger is truly mankind's war of liberation. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program. For from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. Political action is the highest responsibility of a citizen. The basic problems facing the world today are not susceptible to a military solution. The American, by nature, is optimistic. He is experimental, an inventor and a builder who builds best when called upon to build greatly. A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on. The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. Every area of trouble gives out a ray of hope, and the one unchangeable certainty is that nothing is certain or unchangeable. Peace need not be impracticable, and war need not be inevitable. My call is not to those who believe they belong to the past. My call is to those who believe in the future. The supreme reality of our time is the vulnerability of our planet. If we cannot now end our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. Civility is not a sign of weakness. The rising tide lifts all the boats. Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Those whom God has so joined together, let no man put asunder. Wealth is the means, and people are the ends. All our material riches will avail us little if we do not use them to expand the opportunities of our people. There is an old saying that the course of civilization is a race between catastrophe and education. In a democracy such as ours, we must make sure that education wins the race. A child misducked is a child lost. We must abolish nuclear weapons, or they will abolish us. American history is not something dead and over. It is always alive, always growing, always unfinished. Mothers all want their sons to grow up to be president, but they don't want them to become politicians in the process. I do not believe that Washington should do for the people what they can do for themselves through local and private effort. The ancient Greek definition of happiness was the full use of your powers along lines of excellence. Democracy is never a final achievement. It is a call to an untiring effort. The freedom of the city is not negotiable. We cannot negotiate with those who say, "What's mine is mine and what's yours is negotiable." We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We must use time as a tool, not as a couch. The Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. For one true measure of a nation is its success in fulfilling the promise of a better life for each of its members. Let this be the measure of our nation. Liberty without learning is always in peril, and learning without liberty is always in vain. If I don't have a woman every 3 days or so, I get a terrible headache. A country is as strong, really, as its citizens. And I think that mental and physical health, mental and physical vigor, go hand in hand. We are tied to the ocean. And when we go back to the sea, whether it is to sail or to watch, we are going back from whence we came. The U.S. Air Force assures me that UFOs pose no threat to national security. Remember that our nation's first great leaders were also our first great scholars. The farmer is the only man in our economy who buys everything at retail, sells everything at wholesale, and pays the freight both ways. I want every American to be free to stand up for his rights, even if sometimes he has to sit down for them. The greater our knowledge increases, the more our ignorance unfolds. What's the use of being Irish if the world doesn't break your heart? If at times our actions seem to make life difficult for others, it is only because history has made life difficult for us all. The basis of effective government is public confidence. Harvard gave me an education, but Junior Chamber gave me an education for life. The margin is narrow, but the responsibility is clear. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men. Arms alone are not enough to keep the peace. It must be kept by men. Physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body, it is the basis of dynamic and creative intellectual activity. War and hunger and ignorance and despair know no religious barriers. Democracy is the superior form of government, because it is based on a respect for men as a reasonable being. Moral courage is more a rare commodity than bravery in a battle or great intelligence. There is danger that totalitarian governments, not subject to vigorous popular debate, will underestimate the will and unity of democratic societies where vital interests are concerned. Lofty words cannot construct an alliance or maintain it, only concrete deeds can do that. There's an old saying. Never send a boy to do a man's job, send a lady. Knowledge of the oceans is more than a matter of curiosity. Our very survival may hinge upon it. A police state finds that it cannot command the grain to grow. Privilege is here, and with privilege goes responsibility. We in this country, in this generation, are, by destiny rather than choice, the watchmen on the walls of world freedom. Each increase of tension has produced an increase of arms, each increase of arms has produced an increase of tension. If more politicians knew poetry, and more poets knew politics, I am convinced the world would be a little better place in which to live. No man who enters upon the office to which I have succeeded can fail to recognize how every president of the United States has placed special reliance upon his faith in God. It is an unfortunate fact that we can secure peace only by preparing for war. Our problems are man-made, therefore they may be solved by men. We celebrate the past to awaken the future. Freedom is indivisible, and when one man is enslaved, all are not free. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors. Sure, it's a big job, but I don't know anyone who can do it better than I can. Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. The human mind is our fundamental resource. We dare not forget that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Race has no place in American life or law. The highest duty of the writer, the composer, the artist, is to remain true to himself and to let the chips fall where they may. Once you say you're going to settle for second, that's what happens to you in life. The most powerful single force in the world today is neither communism nor capitalism, neither the H-bomb nor the guided missile, it is man's eternal desire to be free and independent. Domestic policy can only defeat us, foreign policy can kill us. We can say with some assurance that, although children may be the victims of fate, they will not be the victims of our neglect. Above all, we are coming to understand that the arts incarnate the creativity of a free people. Our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. The wave of the future is not the conquest of the world by a single dogmatic creed but the liberation of the diverse energies of free nations and free men. Food is strength, and food is peace, and food is freedom, and food is a helping hand to people around the world whose goodwill and friendship we want. We would like to live as we once lived, but history will not permit it. The stories of past courage can offer hope, they can provide inspiration. But they cannot supply courage itself. For this each man must look into his own soul. The great free nations of the world must take control of our monetary problems if these problems are not to take control of us. An economy hampered by restrictive tax rates will never produce enough jobs or enough profits. A rising tide, in the economy, lifts all boats. If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him. All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner. In serving his vision of the truth, the artist best serves his nation. Let us resolve to be masters, not the victims, of our history, controlling our own destiny without giving way to blind suspicions and emotions. The guiding principle of this nation has been, is now, and ever shall be in God we trust. Struggle for freedom. Where people are denied the right of choice, recourse to such struggle is the only means of achieving their liberties. Be aware of danger but recognize the opportunity. There is too little public recognition of how much we all depend upon farmers as stewards of our soil, water, and wildlife resources. In our democracy, every young person should have an equal opportunity to obtain a higher education, regardless of his station in life or financial means. Physical fitness is the basis for all other forms of excellence. The Chinese use 2 brush strokes to write the word crisis. One brush stroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger but recognize the opportunity. Probably the greatest concentration of talent and genius in this house, except for perhaps those times when Thomas Jefferson ate alone. There is a connection, hard to explain logically but easy to feel, between achievement in public life and progress in the arts. Nothing compares to the simple pleasure of a bike ride. I can't see that it's wrong to give him a little legal experience before he goes out to practice law. The United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. This country was conquered by those who moved forward, and so will space. There are many people in the world who really don't understand or say they don't what is the great issue between the free world and the communist world. Let them come to Berlin. Every inhabitant of this planet must contemplate the day when this planet may no longer be habitable. The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. The purpose of foreign policy is not to provide an outlet for our own sentiments of hope or indignation, it is to shape real events in a real world. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon. Our alliance is born, not of fear, but of hope. It is an alliance that advances what we are for, as well as opposes what we are against. We have all seen these circus elephants complete with tusks, ivory in their head and thick skins, who move around the circus ring and grab the tail of the elephant ahead of them. We are under-exercised as a nation. We look instead of play. We ride instead of walk. Our existence deprives us of the minimum of physical activity essential for healthy living. According to the ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. It is time for a new generation of leadership to cope with new problems and new opportunities. For there is a new world to be won. A young man who does not have what it takes to perform military service is not likely to have what it takes to make a living. Today's military rejects include tomorrow's hardcore unemployed. The American labor movement has consistently demonstrated its devotion to the public interest. It is, and has been, good for all America. No American is ever made better off by pulling a fellow American down, and all of us are made better off whenever any one of us is made better off. To be courageous requires no exceptional qualifications, no magic formula, no special combination of time, place, and circumstance. It is an opportunity that sooner or later is presented to us all. It's only when they join together in a forward movement that this country moves ahead. When asked what I am most proud of, I stick out my chest, hold my head high and state proudly, I served in the United States Navy. I look forward to an America which will not be afraid of grace and beauty, an America which will reward achievement in the arts as we reward achievement in business or statecraft. I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who happens also to be a Catholic. Everything changes but change itself. The only significance of analyzing the past is that it does give us some key to the future. The pay is good and I can walk to work. If all of you had voted the other way, there's about 5,500 of you here tonight, I would not be the President of the United States. Failure has no friends. No one has been barred on account of his race from fighting or dying for America. There are no white or colored signs on the foxholes or graveyards of battle. I believe in an America where religious intolerance will someday end, where every man has the same right to attend or not attend the church of his choice. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Forbidden fruit tastes sweet, but its aftertaste is bitter. Most cities are nouns. New York's a verb. Our growing softness, our increasing lack of physical fitness, is a menace to our security. Washington is a city of southern efficiency and northern charm. I hope that no American will waste his franchise and throw away his vote by voting either for me or against me solely on account of my religious affiliation. It is not relevant. Man will be what he was born to be, free and independent. It was involuntary. They sank my boat. The federal budget can and should be made an instrument of prosperity and stability, not a deterrent to recovery. We must never forget that art is not a form of propaganda, it is a form of truth. The basis of self-government and freedom requires the development of character and self-restraint and perseverance and the long view. And these are qualities which require many years of training and education. Political sovereignty is but a mockery without the means of meeting poverty and illiteracy and disease. Self-determination is but a slogan if the future holds no hope. If I had to live my life over again, I would have a different father, a different wife and a different religion. Just because we cannot see clearly the end of the road, that is no reason for not setting out on the essential journey. The most ideal approach to advance is the way of opportunity. There are only two realities in life, death and laughter. We can do nothing to change the former, so we might as well do all we can to save the latter. Fail miserably, achieve greatly. The processes of growth are gradual, bearing fruit in a decade, not a day. We have become more and more not a nation of athletes but a nation of spectators. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses. Art is the great democrat, calling forth creative genius from every sector of society, disregarding race or religion or wealth or color. Politics is like football: if you see daylight, go through the hole. I am sorry to say that there is too much point to the wisecrack that life is extinct on other planets because their scientists were more advanced than ours. We stand today on the edge of a new frontier, the frontier of the 1960s, a frontier of unknown opportunities and perils, a frontier of unfulfilled hopes and threats. I strongly believe in scouting. It's a source of great strength to us. If anyone is crazy enough to want to kill a president of the United States, he can do it. All he must be prepared to do is give his life for the president's. Of all the multitudes who throughout history have spoken for human dignity in times of great suffering and loss, no voice is more compelling than that of Anne Frank. The United States has to move very fast to even stand still. Word to the nation: guard zealously your right to serve in the armed forces, for without them, there will be no other rights to guard. The Jewish people, ever since David slew Goliath, have never considered youth as a barrier to leadership. The United States of America has no intention of finishing second in space. This effort is expensive, but it pays its way for freedom and for America. We shall be judged more by what we do at home than what we preach abroad. We stand today on the edge of a new frontier. I think this is the most extraordinary collection of talent, of human knowledge, that has ever been gathered at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. The human mind is our fundamental resource. When we got into office, the thing that surprised me most was to find that things were just as bad as we'd been saying they were. Our problems are man-made, therefore they may be solved by men. And men can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. History is a relentless master. It has no present, only the past rushing into the future. To try to hold fast is to be swept aside. Now we have a problem in making our power credible, and Vietnam is the place. If men and women are in chains anywhere in the world, then freedom is endangered everywhere. I believe in an America that is officially neither Catholic, Protestant, or Jewish, where religious liberty is so indivisible that an act against one church is treated as an act against all. Those presidents who were strongest intellectually were also strongest spiritually. Life isn't fair. It never was and never will be. We must create worldwide law and law enforcement as we outlaw worldwide war and weapon. I know my Republican friends were glad to see my wife feeding an elephant in India. She gave him sugar and nuts. But of course the elephant wasn't satisfied. In free society, art is not a weapon, artists are not engineers of the soul. It is true that my predecessor did not object, as I do, to pictures of one's golf skill in action. But neither, on the other hand, did he ever be a Secret Service man. I'm 43 years old and I'm the healthiest candidate for the presidency of the United States. You've traveled with me enough to know that I'm not going to die in office. You never know what's hit you. A gunshot is the perfect way. Foreign aid is a method by which the United States maintains a position of influence and control around the world. The best way to progress is the path of freedom. It takes two to make peace. A journey to 1,000 miles begins with one step. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. Aggressive conduct, if allowed to go unchecked and unchallenged, ultimately leads to war. Someone always needs rescuing, yet there's only one person who ever seems to understand you. It's a lot like being Lassie. The poet and the politician have this in common: their greatness depends on the courage with which they face the challenges of life. Change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. We will neglect our cities to our peril, for in neglecting them we neglect the nation. The courage of life is often a less dramatic spectacle than the courage of a final moment, but it is no less a magnificent mixture of triumph and tragedy. The time is not far off when many nations in many parts of the world of many political shades and commitments will possess nuclear or even thermonuclear weapons. In giving rights to others which belong to them, we give rights to ourselves and to our country. To sound the alarm is not to panic but to seek action from an aroused public. I see little more important to the future of our country and our civilization than the full recognition of the place of the artist. We hold the view that the people make the best judgment in the long run. I look forward to an America which will not be afraid of grace and beauty. We are not afraid to entrust the American people with unpleasant facts, foreign ideas, alien philosophies, and competitive values. I'm always rather nervous about how you talk about women who are active in politics, whether they want to be talked about as women or as politicians. There comes a point where you see no evidence that the carrot and diplomacy are working. While we shall never weary in the defense of freedom, neither shall we ever abandon the pursuit of peace. And this nation, for all its hopes and all its boasts, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free. To each of us is entrusted the heavy responsibility of guiding the affairs of a democratic nation founded on Christian ideals. Now is the time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth. We prefer world law in the age of self-determination to world war in the age of mass extermination. The efforts of governments alone will never be enough. In the end, the people must choose and the people must help themselves. Last year, more Americans went to symphonies than went to baseball games. This may be viewed as an alarming statistic, but I think that both baseball and the country will endure. The leadership of the American Legion has not had a constructive thought for the benefit of this country since 1918. I think, "Hail to the Chief" has a nice ring to it. You're in there with me. Personally. The earth, the sea, and air are the concern of every nation. And science, technology, and education can be the ally of every nation. The mere absence of war is not peace. But however close we sometimes seem to that dark and final abyss, let no man of peace and freedom despair. For he does not stand alone. Let's not talk so much about vice. I'm against vice in all forms. If we are to go only halfway or reduce our sights in the face of difficulty, it would be better to not go at all. We must seek, above all, a world of peace, a world in which peoples dwell together in mutual respect and work together in mutual regard. There is, in addition to a courage with which men die, a courage by which men must live. Art establishes the basic human truths which must serve as the touchstone of our judgment. Since the time of the ancient Greeks, we have always felt that there was a close relationship between a strong, vital mind and physical fitness. Real men stay faithful. They don't have time to look for other women because they're too busy looking for new ways to love their own. There is something that happens when we leave the land and enter the ocean. It's unexpected, the environment feels strangely welcoming. The ocean almost feels like home. The credit of success is claimed by all, while a disaster is attributed to one alone. Irrational barriers and ancient prejudices fall quickly when the question of survival itself is at stake. For a subject worked and reworked so often in novels, motion pictures, and television, American Indians remain probably the least understood and most misunderstood Americans of us all. I was born an American, I live like an American, I will die an American. What church I go to on Sunday, what dogma of the Catholic Church I believe in, is my business, and whatever faith any other American has is his business. I have a nice home, the office is close by, and the pay is good. As science, of necessity, becomes more involved with itself, so also, of necessity, it becomes more international. I am impressed to know that of the 670 members of this academy, do you realize the responsibility I carry? I'm the only person standing between Richard Nixon and the White House. Oh God, thy sea is so great and my boat is so small. I suppose if you could have only one thing, it would be that energy. Without it, you haven't got a thing. Unless liberty flourishes in all lands, it cannot flourish in one. The great enemy of the truth is not the lie, deliberate, contrived and dishonest, but the myth persistent, persuasive and unrealistic. I do not speak for my church on public matters, and the church does not speak for me. I have said that control of arms is a mission that we undertake particularly for our children and our grandchildren and that they have no lobby in Washington. Sometimes it just amazes me how many people desperately want to protect my personal information. 10,000 reflections hide the true gem. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. I am not so much concerned with the right of everyone to say anything he pleases as I am about our need as a self-governing people to hear everything relevant. Peace is a process, a way of solving problems. We live in a hemisphere whose own revolution has given birth to the most powerful force of the modern age, the search for freedom and self-fulfillment of men. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, to assure the survival and the success of liberty. Every dollar released from taxation that is spared or invested will help create a new job and a new salary. You can milk a cow the wrong way once and still be a farmer, but vote the wrong way on a water tower and you can be in trouble. Libraries should be open to all, except the censor. Response to questionnaire in Saturday Review, October 29, 1960. I just received the following wire from my generous daddy. Dear Jack, don't buy a single vote more than is necessary. I'll be damned if I'm going to pay for a landslide. Anyone who is honestly seeking a job and can't find it, deserves the attention of the United States government, and the people. The great revolution in the history of men, past, present and future, is the revolution of those determined to be free. In a world of danger and trial, peace is our deepest aspiration. If I don't have a woman for 3 days, I get terrible headaches. Israel will endure and flourish. It is the child of hope and the home of the brave. For if freedom and communism were to compete for man's allegiance in a world at peace, I would look to the future with ever-increasing confidence. Let us make it clear that we will never turn our backs on our steadfast friends in Israel, whose adherence to the democratic way must be admired by all friends of freedom. If we could ever competitively, at a cheap rate, get fresh water from salt water, this would be in the long-range interests of humanity, which could really dwarf any other scientific accomplishments. In America there must be only citizens, not divided by grade, first and second, but citizens, east, west, north, and south. Automation does not need to be our enemy. I think machines can make life easier for men, if men do not let the machines dominate them. A wall is a hell of a lot better than a war. In a very real sense, it will not be one man going to the moon, it will be an entire nation. For all of us must work to put him there. Bullfight critics row on row fill the enormous Plaza de Toros, but only one is there who knows, and he is the one who fights the bull. Our privileges can be no greater than our obligations. The protection of our rights can endure no longer than the performance of our responsibilities. Partnership is not a posture but a process, a continuous process that grows stronger each year as we devote ourselves to common tasks. The science of weapons and war has made us all one world and one human race with one common destiny. It might be said now that I have the best of both worlds. A Harvard education and a Yale degree. Peace does not rest in charters and covenants alone. It lies in the hearts and minds of the people. There are no white or colored signs on the foxholes or graveyards of battle. When you have 7% unemployed, you have 93% working. The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. When I was growing up I had 3 wishes. I wanted to be a Lindbergh-type hero, learn Chinese, and become a member of the Algonquin Round Table. The new and terrible dangers which man has created can only be controlled by men. A Canadian newspaperman said yesterday that this is the president's Easter egghead roll on the White House lawn. I want to deny that. Any danger spot is tenable if men, brave men, will make it so. War can no longer be of concern to great powers alone. I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris, and I have enjoyed it. Those whom nature hath so joined together, let no man put asunder. We are inclined to think that if we watch a football game or a baseball game, we have taken part in it. We go into space because whatever mankind must undertake, free men must fully share. In that case, there is no time to lose. Plant it this afternoon. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does rice play Texas? While much remains to be done to achieve full equality of economic opportunity for the average woman worker earns only 60% of the average wage for men, this legislation is a significant step forward. Suspicion on one side breeds suspicion on the other, and new weapons beget counterweapons. Any system of government will work when everything is going well. It's the system that functions in the pinches that survive. This is not the land of my birth, but it is the land for which I hold the greatest affection, and I certainly will come back in the springtime. Acting on our own, by ourselves, we cannot establish justice throughout the world, but joined with other free nations, we can assist the developing nations to throw off the yoke of poverty. If you look throughout human history, the central epiphany of every religious tradition always occurs in the wilderness. For without belittling the courage with which men have died, we should not forget those acts of courage with which men have lived. There is no city in the United States in which I can get a warmer welcome and fewer votes than Columbia, Ohio. No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered as lacking in virtue. Success has many fathers. Wherever there is smoke, there is a good smoke machine. We don't want to be like the leader in the French Revolution who said, "There go my people, I must find out where they are going so I can lead them." Israel was not created in order to disappear. Israel will endure and flourish. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. At the start of 2005, the idea of downloading a song to a mobile phone was an idea. By the end of the year, it was a reality. Will Rogers once said, "It is not the original investment in a congressman that counts, it is the upkeep." In a time of domestic crisis, men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics. This knowledge, the knowledge that the physical well-being of the citizen is an important foundation for all of the activities of the nation, is as old as Western civilization itself. When things don't go well, they like to blame presidents, and that's something that presidents are paid for. An across-the-board, top-to-bottom cut in personal and corporate income taxes to expand the incentives and opportunities of private expenditures. My brother Bob doesn't want to be in government. He promised Dad he'd go straight. While we shall negotiate freely, we shall not negotiate freedom. Philanthropy, charity, giving voluntarily and freely, call it what you like, but it is truly a jewel of an American tradition. Every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated, as one would wish his children to be treated. This is not the case. There's an old saying that victory has 100 fathers and defeat is an orphan. I'm the responsible officer of the government.